Welcome to the 3 Degrees of Freedom podcast, where we explore lifestyle engineering with our expert guests to bring you in alignment with your own 3 degrees of freedom, location, time, and financial independence. All right, and today I'm honored to have Mr. Tait Duryea on the podcast. How are you, Tait?
Doing great. How are you, Derek? Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, man, fantastic. I'm super excited to have this podcast interview with you. This is going to be an awesome value add for all of the listeners out there. But before we jump in, I want to make sure people know who you are.
You can boil that thing down.
Tait's been as a 12,000 hour airline pilot. Tait understands lifestyle needs and wants of the professional aviator. He's on a personal crusade to replace his income with cash flowing real estate. So he founded Turbine Capital to provide his colleagues and others with the same direct access to professionally managed real estate opportunities he worked so hard to find himself. And he's got a decade of residential and commercial investing experience. And he began investing passively in self-storage, multifamily, and then development syndications also in 2017. And since he's accrued significant experience in analysis and due diligence of those offerings. And Tait's, as I mentioned before, is a captain and a check airman on the Airbus A321 for a major U.S. airline. What a lifestyle, buddy. That is awesome.
Thanks, man. It's great. I think I'm one of those few people in the world that actually gets to honestly say that they love what they do, both in business and for my W-2.
Yeah, man, I love to hear that. As this show is based on the 3 degrees of freedom, which is time freedom, location freedom, financial freedom. It's pretty obvious right now as an airline pilot that a location freedom type thing is maybe one area where you have this advantage, right? That's just my,
you could say that. It's pretty cool. If you don't know, if you've ever seen Catch Me If You Can, that scene where he rides the jump seat, it's pretty accurate. You can go to the airport, look at the departure board, decide where you want to go, and you just rock up to the gate and say, "Hey, can I catch a ride to XYZ?" There's a seat in the back you jump on, and if it's full, you can even sit in the cockpit on other carriers through the cockpit access security system, it's an amazing benefit.
I love it, man. I love it. So if you guys don't know, go check out that movie. It is a really good movie with Tom Hanks and Leonardo DiCaprio, right?
That's right.
Really good movie. Let's jump into this thing. Which of these 3 degrees of freedom, location, time, financial, do you feel is most important to you right now?
Good question. I think having started this business, for those of you who aren't super familiar with my background, I, much like Derek, have a private equity company. We syndicate real estate, and we have an investor list of hundreds of investors who work with us. Prior to that, an airline pilot's life is pretty Riley. We get half the month off. You travel for free anywhere in the world. You get paid a lot of money. It's a really good lifestyle. I don't know what I was thinking, screwing that all up by going and starting a business. But right now, with having to juggle the two, I'd say time freedom is the most important.
That's a really interesting response. I appreciate that. But maybe this is not the same analogy, but it's if you work at Chipotle, and they offer you free Chipotle, are you going to sit down and eat Chipotle every day? I wonder, do you have that like effect where you have the ability to travel anywhere? You've got this location freedom. Is it something that you're like, dude, I just want to go home and I just want to sleep for a little while? And is that at play here?
It definitely is. I think it depends. Some people like traveling more than others. I have an affinity for it. I finished flying last week and immediately got on a plane, got to go skiing. But yeah, there's definitely, if you pack in too many days, one after another, all you want to do is just not go to the airport. Yeah, there's definitely some of that.
I can imagine. So let's shift here. I wanted to ask you, you had to learn a lot to unlock these degrees of freedom. You went to school, obviously, to get your location freedom, and then you started working, and you're still working really hard for this company. I get the feeling that you really enjoy your job and you love what you do. But can you tell us what you've had to learn to try to unlock the current degrees of freedom that you have, or to the extent that you have them? I assume you have plenty of financial freedom, lots of, or more time freedom than most people do, even though there's always room to improve. And then of course your location freedom is given. But can you tell us a little bit about like, what you've had to learn to get on your journey to have the ability to make these choices?
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. So first of all, there's the aviation career. And for anybody that's not familiar with it, I really encourage you to check it out if you're young or if you have kids or nieces and nephews that are interested in aviation. It's just an incredible career path. We've never seen a time like this in the aviation industry where airlines are hiring as quickly as and fast as they are. The job definitely affords you a level of time, location, and financial freedom that most careers don't. In fact, if you look at even other comparable careers financially wise, even other careers financially, doctors, attorneys, things like that, they don't have nearly the amount of time off that we have. So definitely check it out. You don't need to have perfect vision. That's the biggest myth that I always hear. Oh, if I'd have known that I didn't have to wear glasses. You don't need perfect vision. You can have glasses, contacts, whatever. So anyway, check it out. I think that while there is an incredible financial benefit to being an aviator, there is a cap. So for me, I've always been driven by those freedoms, whether I labeled them as such or not. I think I've always been driven by time, money, and location freedom. So once you get there, you have a level of financial freedom. You're making well into six figures. Most airline captains today are making between $300,000 and $700,000 a year. So you have a level of financial success and financial freedom, but that's it. Like you can't go any higher. It's not like in business where if you work harder or you create more value, that you can create more financial success. That's kind of it. You're topped out. We're union. We have a contract, and we go with the contract cycles. So in terms of growth and personal growth, you're tapped out there. In terms of time, we have a lot of time off. You usually get about half the month off. If you work more, you can end up working 2.5, 3 weeks out of the month. That'd be a really heavy schedule. Or you could scale back. You're not going to make as much money, but you can scale back to even as low as about a week of work per month. And then location, you do have to, when you fly, you're based somewhere, right? So if I want to go spend 2 months in Europe, I can do that, but there's probably going to be a 2-week span where I have to come back to Hawaii, fly a few trips, and then I can go back to Europe, right? So there's a piece of a lot less than any other career, but there still is a semblance of an anchor to a certain location. And it's just always been something that I've personally been interested in expanding and growing beyond the confines of a W-2 job. And not to say that I want to quit, but I would like to fly less. I always say that if I won $100 million lottery tomorrow, I wouldn't quit my job. If you said you've got $100 million in your bank account, I would invest a bunch of it and I wouldn't quit. I'd fly less, but I love flying airplanes and going to work. And it's an amazing, my airline is an amazing place to work with incredible people. So I'm very fortunate for that. But yeah, in terms of what I've had to learn in order to grow into that, I had to go to flight school, had to follow this career path blindly sometimes. And it's wonderful now that I've made it. But now I'm in this second evolution of that, where I'm building this business, which is sacrificing a bunch of time and location freedom right now in order to grow into the next iteration.
Yeah, that's very well said. One thing that I can tell too about what you're doing is that it seems like there's passion in what you're doing, both in your full-time work, which is in a way, I forgot the name of a book but one of my mentors wrote this book. And he talks about two games. You have a ground game, and then you've got the air game. In the ground game, it's very solid and steady. It's usually like your W-2 income, or it's what you do for your active income to create some income for yourself, right? And generate a lifestyle based on your current means. But then there's an air game that people should be working on as well. And it's weird how here the air game is actually your ground game. And then
Right.
working on the real estate and everything, that is your air game. It's your long-term vision, something that's going to take a lot of time to build up that thrust. But once you're there and you're up in the air, right, and you're off, you're flying really far, really fast with less friction.
Exactly.
And I feel like for you, you've really found both in your air game and your ground game this passion.
Yeah.
And while you're pursuing this passion, it's allowing you to explore these degrees of freedom, right? And obviously time is the most important thing. And that's probably the resource that you're doing this for, is for more time freedom, so that your other 3 degrees can get nailed down.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's a constant balance. I think that one of the best exercises that someone can do when they're looking at their life is a couple things. I'm going to give you 2. First of all, one of the hardest questions that anyone can answer is, if you had unlimited time and money, what would you do? Most people can't answer that. It's something that you should really think hard about, right? Because if money was never an issue and time was never an issue, and you could do anything you wanted and you could go anywhere you wanted, a lot of people struggle to conceptualize what that life would look like. And I think it's important to bring it back to basics, do a quarterly, yearly, whatever check-in on, what is all this for? What are you trying to accomplish? I think in the US, we're so geared to work. And I'm a function of that, but I do have a very clear goal in mind of where I'm headed. As an airline pilot, we don't take an airplane off the gate and fly somewhere not knowing where we're going.
Yeah.
There's a destination in mind. We're trying to get somewhere. So there should be a reason. If you're going to work like hell, it's like, there should be somewhere that you're going. You shouldn't just be on this hamster wheel, just trying to generate as much wealth as possible for absolutely no reason, because I don't know, you're going to give it to your kids or to charity, right? It's there should be a goal. And then second, it's constantly this balancing act. I think that if you were to split up your life into different buckets, and there's financial, career, health, your relationships with your friends, your relationships with your significant other, and you rate each one of those buckets 1 to 10, you'll very quickly find out which buckets are full and which buckets are not so full and need work. And it's the simplest exercise to figure out where you need to spend more time. And it'll never be perfect 10s across the board. It just won't. It's always going to be push pull. You're going to be spending a little bit too much time working, or a little bit too little time doing fun things or catching up with old friends. But constantly check in with yourself and pay attention to how those buckets are ebbing and flowing, because it's a good way to just make sure that you're checking in with your balance.
Let me ask you, how do you do that check-in? What does it look like to you? Is it a self-reflective process where you sit back and you look at what you've accomplished? Or are you in nature? Are you in a meditative state? Are you working out? How does that look for you?
I've never been very good at meditating.
Okay.
I try, but thoughts always creep in. For me, do a lot of hiking and surfing and things like that. I find that when I'm hiking out in the woods, it gives time for self-reflection. Also, this is going to sound really cliche, but on airplanes, I think being on an airplane is one of the most meditative, introspective places that you can be. There was actually an author, who was it? In any case, there was an author who swore by this. He would write while he was airborne. And in order to write one specific book, he booked a first-class ticket to Tokyo from somewhere in the US, immediately got off the plane, boarded it again, and flew back. And he wrote the entire book on the round trip. Yeah. And so Wi-Fi has ruined this, right?
Yeah.
And of course, it's nice to get some things done. But if you can stay off of the Wi-Fi on airplanes and just stare out the window and put on some chill music and think, very rewarding and productive.
Just out of curiosity, Does this also apply for if you're on the job, or you have to actually be paying attention? I'm sure that the computer handles a lot of it, but you got to be monitoring the computer and checking in with your staff. And I'm sure with the pilot or the co-pilot, if depending on your role. Just curious
Yeah,
how that works on
for
the other
sure.
side.
Yeah, this is a question that comes up a lot, actually. If for anyone that's ever sailed, it's a lot like sailing, where it's really busy when you're getting off the dock and pulling out of the marina. But as soon as when we're going to A to B, right? As soon as you're on a tack and you're going somewhere and you put the autopilot on heading hold, you're just sitting back, monitoring things, making sure. And anybody who's done an ocean crossing, which I haven't, but you're doing 24-hour watches where nothing's really going on. You're sitting there reading a book. You're there making sure that you're watching the weather, you're watching your course, you're monitoring all the systems. So it's actually quite relaxing. Day by day, there are days where we're working the whole time because there's passenger issues or weather or so on and so forth. But there's also days where it's very straightforward. On the easiest of days where everything goes right, anybody could do it. We get paid for when things go wrong.
Yeah, of course.
But yeah, there's time to stare out the window and be introspective for sure.
That's good. That's good to hear. I'm glad. That means that pilots are very wise people because they have lots of time to hopefully be introspective.
And because you have all the years of benefit of sitting next to old grouchy captains who have been through it all.
How funny.
Before you upgrade to captain yourself, they've been through 3 divorces and they've got all the life wisdom.
Yeah, that is actually one thing that I did want to touch on too. There is a lot of wisdom there. This lifestyle is, I can imagine it's not for everyone just because you're away for so long. Like, yeah, you're back at home for long periods of time, but you work in these blocks is what I'm understanding. And when you're on these blocks, you're away. You're not reachable, most likely, when you're in the cockpit. Unless it's an emergency, something like that. And so you're gone for very large amounts of time. There's other. Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
First of all, it's flexible.
Okay.
If you need to drop a trip or swap or pick up or move your schedule around, it's really easy to do that. But second, it depends on what airline you're with. Anybody who's interested in the career, the schedules vary vastly, whether you're flying for, say, FedEx and you're doing a 12-day rotation around the globe versus like my airline, I'm with Hawaiian. Everything's an out and back. So it's either anywhere from 24 to 72 hours where you fly out, you lay over and you come back. So we have some trips that we'll have 72-hour layovers in Auckland or Sydney or Japan, or it's a little mini vacation. There's others where we just have a minimum rest overnight or on the West Coast, and then we fly home. So it really depends. We have a great schedule at this airline if you want to live in Hawaii, where everything's quick out and back. And most airlines have that. That's another factor of time, money, location freedom is, maybe that schedule is on an airplane that doesn't pay as high because it's not as big, but the schedule is better and it means you're home more and that's what you want. So it really, again, back to the time, money, location freedom, passive income gives you the option to not go chase the money on the big airplane with this schedule that's not going to be as good just because you want to make an extra $100,000 a year or something like that.
Of course. Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. So there's other lifestyles out there, other careers. Like for instance, if you're a programmer, right? Someone that works through the internet, then you have a sense of location freedom, or at least something like what you have as well. And so I wanted to ask you, what advice would you give to others who are starting out in their journey and want this lifestyle of starting off with location freedom? Is there anything that you could tell them, like maybe some misconceptions or advice to getting that?
Good question. I've never been a digital nomad. I'm sure that anyone who's interested in being one and is just starting off is well aware of the opportunities that are afforded in this day and age with the internet and being able to work from anywhere. And that's something that I was just talking to my parents about, I don't know, a few months ago. My dad was reminiscing on the fact that just wasn't something that existed when they were growing up. And
actually,
that was a cool thing.
That was not even 15 years ago, man. at the turn of the
Right.
millennium, that was when it was just getting started, and
Right.
still wasn't very well known. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. And there would be someone who's living in Argentina working on the internet, and it was like, wow, what a wacko. And now it's completely normalized.
Yeah. Actually, it's idolized. A lot of
It
people want
is.
that lifestyle.
Yeah, for sure. And there's a lot of ways to leverage other people's time
Yep.
and resources in order to make that happen.
You got it. Absolutely. So, do you have any advice for people who maybe want to try to start out in that direction, or um, anything that they should be aware of, you think, to have this level of location freedom?
If you want to get into flying airplanes, yeah, it's a double-edged sword, right? Because you got to be there in order to do the job. It's also incredibly fun if it's something you enjoy to do, and it affords you location freedom beyond the job with free travel all over the world.
Yeah.
But it's definitely not the path you want to go down if you wanted to live in South America for 6 months and then live in Bali for 6 months. That's not the direction you want to go. You want to do something that you can have access to an internet connection, your laptop, and go.
Yeah. And I do think that where you're headed is you're going to be even more location independent because of the business that you're setting up with systems, processes, depending on people. Yeah, there's a level of what you do right now that does get amplified if you have a face-to-face connection. But for the most part, phone calls, Zoom calls, emails, texts, like it's a very connected world out there. And there's a lot of ways to make it happen. And so that's why I'm super excited for you as you continue to grow this foundation to be able to do that.
Thanks.
I wanted to ask you, what do you think you're on the earth to do for people?
I have a knack for explaining complex topics. I was a flight instructor when I first got out of flight school, and that's how I built my hours to before I was flying cargo and small airplanes and working my way up to the airlines. And now I get to do that with finance. And I think
Yeah.
I don't know if I could call it a calling, but it's a legacy that I think I'm proud to take on and teach other aviators about financial freedom and generational wealth and the kind of things that when you're not indoctrinated to it, it sounds like a sales pitch or some guru talking at a seminar, but it's not. It's very tangible. It's very accessible. It's very possible for people with the kinds of incomes that we do as high income W-2 professionals, as pilots or programmers or whatever. Over the course of 20, 30 years, you can just absolutely crush financially if you invest it right with some really simple real estate strategies that have been around forever. There's books all over the place on it, right? But it takes a long time to digest them and put them into practice. Yeah, I think the platform that I've built with Turbine is hopefully going to do a lot of long-term good for the aviation community and for other W-2 professionals that are interested.
Sure. Why don't we take just a second here for you? And since I know this already, this is something that's not new to me, but I want to make sure that the audience gets the benefit of learning what it is that you teach and how you go about adding value. So maybe you can just talk real quick in the next couple of minutes about how you find property, how you're involved, and how people can work with you in that regard.
Yeah. The way, just to give a quick background on my real estate experience, I've always been obsessed with creating passive income and buying real estate and managing it. And so I started buying single family homes when I was in my early 20s and transitioned to condos and to small multifamily. And that was great, but I enjoyed the acquisition process and the due diligence and analysis of these properties more than I did the actual management of them once I own them.
I know what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah. So but I didn't know you could invest passively. So I went to a real estate conference in Denver in 2017 or 2018 with the intention of growing my network, because real estate investing is a team sport. For anybody that doesn't know, it's not something you can do in a bubble. It's not like stock trading. You need to know people who are in the industry. You got to have relationships with your broker, relationships with your lenders, contractors, property managers, et cetera. So I was trying to grow my network in order to buy more active deals. And instead, what happened was I met a bunch of operators, syndicators, whatever you want to call them, deal sponsors, who put real estate deals together, and private investors come along with them for the ride. It's very much like, Derek, you could go and fly a small airplane by yourself, get your private pilot's license and fly a small airplane on the weekend, right? It's very much the same as going out and buying rental property on your own, versus investing in a syndication is like you buying a ticket on Delta and getting on a professionally flown aircraft and you're going from A to B.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've got professionally trained pilots, you've got professional mechanics, you've got a whole system that they're working within. What our job is at Turbine, and what I've learned how to do, is to audit that airline. So to find the operator, first of all, the operator could be, quote unquote, the airline. The best way I've found to do that is through conferences and through word of mouth. The best ones tend to bubble up to the top, and it's always great to meet face to face at a conference where you can just talk real estate, and that's just sort of surface level. You're just going to see, okay, what's their route structure? What do they do? What kind of assets do they buy? From that point, you need to look at their track record. Let's Google this airline and see if they've had any crashes, right? So let's have a conversation with the operator and talk about their track record, their past deals. What did they project versus how did they perform? And we're getting deeper into the actual data on that stuff, not just relying on them saying, we projected a 17 IRR and we did a 21. Okay, what drives that? Mm-hmm. What did the actual original underwriting show? What were you projecting for rent growth and expense growth and all these sort of things? And then what actually happened, not just in your business plan, but also in the market. If the market exploded and rent growth organically went up 10, 12% a year, then I'm not impressed anymore, because the data that drives that actuals versus projections didn't actually, nothing you did drove that outperformance. It was the market, right? So we've learned how to essentially boroscope the engine and audit the flight plan and interview the pilots and do all those things in order to take that operator, market, and deal through a due diligence process.
Yeah, I would say that this is definitely an art form and a science. It's combined, right?
Right.
I mentioned this on another podcast before as well with another guest, but I would say that I would much rather have a excellent operator and an average investment than the other way around. Having
definitely
an average operator and an excellent investment, because having the right horse to jockey for.
It's just like when I said, when it's a beautiful blue day and everything's working great, that anybody can fly the airplane.
Anyone can do it. Yeah.
Anyone can fly the airplane. But when the weather gets bad and you have an engine failure, it's like you want someone who's really well experienced and well trained.
I love it. Tait, I just got to say, I got a vision of you talking through the airplane analogy, of you getting on the mic on the phone for the passengers and saying, attention all accredited investors.
That's right. Yeah.
It's really funny for
probably
me to
wouldn't
think
go
about.
over too well.
Yeah, I don't think so. Not with the union or with the staff. I'm sure on board. Anyways,
I'm sure 90 out of 100 people would say, what's an accredited investor anyway?
That's right. What does 506C mean? Yeah, exactly. And then you're going to have people storming the cockpit trying to figure out what you were talking about.
That's right.
Let me ask you, last question I have before we head into the rapid round here is, obviously, as your life unfolds and your work is also unfolding alongside of that, have you found that because you've been strengthening your degrees of freedom, you've been finding out that you've been having more choices, have been slowly finding out that your life and work are starting to meld together a little bit more? Like it's just the one long continuum. Like maybe you're at work, and then while you're working, maybe you're doing some of your business work, right? Or you're at home doing some business work and planning for the W-2 or planning for your full-time job. Have you find that like those are all starting to become a part of who you are as a person, and you're like in alignment with where you believe you should be?
So it definitely only goes one direction.
Okay.
The flying stuff, one of the amazing benefits of this job is you don't take it home with you. In 12 and a half years at my airline, company's never called me once unless it's to offer me double pay to take a flight. You literally leave the job and you don't take it home with you. I often joke that if the airplane's on fire, once I set the parking brake at the gate, it's someone else's problem. There's some truth to that because it's
Yeah.
hey,
Yeah.
we're off duty.
Yeah.
We have a job to do from here to here. And then there's someone that maintenance is going to meet the airplane on the other end. The passenger service agents are meeting the passengers, the flight attendant, we're done. It definitely only works one way. I take my business to work with me there. I'm working some nights on layovers and things like that.
Sure.
It definitely is, it's fulfilling in a different way. Whereas the aviation job is amazing because you don't take it home and because your responsibilities start here and end here. And business is what you make it. So it allows for a more creative space, I would say, and an opportunity to use your talents and your life force in order to create something that is bigger than yourself.
Yeah, no, I can totally see that. I think that if you don't have to take your work home and it is completely separate, I think that's also in a way that that's woven into your life. Like it's integrating into who you are as a person. You're making a choice to do that because once you don't need that anymore, what remains is the life that you still were living in another. And I guess, what I'm trying to get at is that sometimes when people don't have choices, they go to the office, usually to fulfilling an unfulfilling job or something that they're doing just because they need the money there. And they walk in and then they have a separate life. There's a work life and then there is a home life. And I feel like as people start walking down the degrees of freedom and start enabling more choices, I have typically found that work and life starts melding together.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that I'm seeing that in you because before it was just airplane job, home, airplane job, home. Now, when you're at home, you still do have the airplane job, but I have a feeling that this new business and this new life that you're setting up for yourself will become your new life eventually.
And it also, I think it depends on personality profiles, right? Because some people don't want all this, I would never wish this upon most people.
Gotta be honest.
Let's be honest. The whole reason we exist as a company, Turbine Capital, is to show pilots that they can invest in real estate without all the work of real estate. So, and a lot of people are busy with family and kids and soccer practice. And the last thing they want is to bring their job home with them or for it to be melded together. I don't know, but some people need that. For one, I clearly remember being on one of my first long layovers that was a boring one. There wasn't a ton to do on it. And it was, now what? I made it to my major airline. I did it. Here I am. Now what? What am I building towards? And for me personally, and I think for you as well, right? You're a highly motivated individual. It's fun to create something and create more economic opportunity for myself and for other people, and to just build something of value. It's all sort of a game, but it depends on who you are. Some people want that, some people don't.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, I look at it as, okay, if I'm building my time freedom up and I'm scaling my business, yet I'm not scaling the amount of hours that I'm putting in because I'm building systems and people to put into my business, I'm seeing my life as being like woven together, where like I can spend more time making decisions and just living the life that I wanted to live while this thing is running in the background. It is like it's there all the time, but you have the processes to protect you. So your time, your location, and your financial freedom is protected.
Definitely. I think that for anybody who wants to accomplish that without creating a business, you can do that through passive real estate investing.
Absolutely.
And it's to me, it's linear versus non-linear income.
Yeah.
Where, if you go and fly or work or whatever you do, you can make, even an athlete who's making $60 million a year is still trading their time for money. If they stop working, they stop getting paid.
That's right.
It's one for one, right? Whereas on the investing side, the more dollars that you put to work over here, those dollars are just going to continue generating income for you forever.
Yep.
And it's nonlinear. You can continually grow that snowball over here, and it just grows and grows without you having to trade any time for it.
Bingo. And that's why we do what we do. We want to empower that for all of our partners, people that we really value and want to help as well. I help give them the opportunities that, like you said, we wish that we had known about earlier.
Yep.
Let us jump into the rapid round. We're getting close to the end of the show here. I wish I had more time to be able to explore this more with you, but this has been an awesome conversation so far. So if you're ready, I'm going to ask you the same 6 questions that I ask every one of my guests. And we're going to just go ahead and rapidly ask them to you. And hopefully you can give 30-second answers or less to each one.
See if I can return these tennis balls. All right.
All right, let's go for it, man. Number 1, name any resource that was or is essential in your journey to pursue freedom.
Podcasts.
What?
Bigger Pockets was a big one.
Yeah.
That was, if you want your PhD in real estate, just go burn down that show.
Oh, for sure. Even if you go back to some of the oldies, back when Josh Dorkin and Brandon Turner were on.
I actually prefer those. Yeah, we should preface that. Go back.
Yes.
It gives me some solace that their first 30 or so episodes were pretty rough because I just started my shows. But yeah, it's fantastic. I think they're up to like 750 now. Go explore basically 1 through 500. They're incredible. Yeah.
There's all types of topics and guests there. Like you can basically get any of your questions answered, and real estate is mostly timeless. Like the principles don't change. The trends do, but I think that's a great piece of advice. Okay. Number 2, if you woke up and your entire business was gone and you had $500, a laptop, a place to live, and some food, what do you think you would do first?
Good question. What would I do first to rebuild the business?
Correct.
Or just
in general.
Pizza.
kind of try to take in what just happened to you, right?
Take a break, maybe download Netflix. But someone was just talking about this the other day, how Tony Robbins went through a massive divorce, lost something like 80% of his net worth, while simultaneously being hamstrung from creating new income because it was 2008 and his business, eviscerated. And they made the point how you could think, oh, he's starting from square one, but he's not starting from square one because he has all of his network and his knowledge of software and his knowledge of strategy. And yeah, I think that the hardest part of doing anything is learning how to do it. Once I could go to the airport and sit down in the cockpit and get off the gate in 20 minutes. The first time you do that on a new airplane, it's really hard to learn all those flows and procedures and learn the flight management guidance system. And so there's a learning curve on everything. And once you have that, nobody can take that away.
Love that. I love having the confidence and knowing that you've got the knowledge that you become a person to grow into something. And so it's just, I guess, having confidence. I like that, sitting back, relaxing, and just reflecting on what to do next. I think that's awesome. Yeah. Good advice. If that ever happens to you, I hope it doesn't happen to you, listeners. Number 3.
I hope not.
What does your self-reflection and goal setting practice look like?
I think I start from the top down, and by top, long term. I think that for most people looking 6, 12, 24 months out, even 5 years is fairly easy. Once you get beyond that, it gets a little murky. I think that we could all admit that it's hard to imagine what life is going to be like in 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40. Think out to when you're going to be 70. Like, what do you actually want to be doing with your time that far out? It's difficult, but it's a really good exercise because that provides the North Star that you can then break down what direction you should be going and what you're trying to accomplish and why. From there, the really far out stuff breaks down to 10-year goals. I think most people, again, another Tony Robbins quote, but they overestimate what they can accomplish in a year and vastly underestimate what they can accomplish in a decade. So having that 10-year goal of, okay, this is big, but I think we can accomplish it in 10 years, from there to 5, from there to a year, from there to quarters. And then in terms of where the traction really kicks in is the 90 days.
90 days.
I think a year is too long to plan. So if you have goals, make sure that they're somehow broken down into 90-day sprints and then even further into daily actions.
Wonderful. Love that advice. I do the same thing. Cool.
Love that.
All right. What are the core work habits that you attribute to your success?
Persistence.
Yeah.
I think, and recognizing, I think it's important to also recognize that persistence paired with intelligently using your resources, because there's a lot of things that you could do yourself or learn how to do or just work really freaking hard at. When if you just hired a coach, you'd go so much faster. Or if you just recognize that, hey man, I'm just not good at this, and hire it out. And either shortcutting the development of that skill or hiring out that skill. Anyway, hopefully.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's like leverage, right? It's like you want to make sure that you're digging with a big shovel or with a long fulcrum or long lever, so that way you can move more with little effort. So I completely agree. All right.
But at the end of the day,
yes, of course.
You just have to keep pushing.
Yep. Last question is, what tool or process has become one of your most important time, money, or energy saving ninja magic tricks that you use every day?
So there's 2, and when they're combined, it's like magic.
Okay.
I'm sure most people listening to this show have heard of Loom.
Yes.
Loom. If I only could answer one, it'd be Loom. Loom is just amazing to be able to, it's asynchronous communication, right? So I can just show someone something, send it their way, so much more effective than sending a textual email. That combined with a project management tool, we use Asana, but Airtable, Monday, I think Notion, whatever it is.
Yeah.
If you combine that, then it creates a process capture mechanism that's insanely useful, because you can capture anything that you do over and over again, or will need to be done over and over again. You can just capture it, lives in that project management tool. And now there's a how-to associated with that task.
That's exactly what we do with all of our stuff, man. I love it. That's great. That just means that we're building best practices together. That's the way I see it. I love it.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, Tait, this has been awesome, man. We could go on for another hour or two, I'm sure, exploring your career, your degrees of freedom, your techniques, your tips, all this great stuff here. But before we go, why don't you tell the listeners a little bit more about how they can find you and look you up on the web, how they can reach out to you and just engage with you in general?
Absolutely. My email is Tait, Tait, at turbinecap.com. Our website, turbinecap.com, for Turbine Capital. That's our private equity company. I also just launched our new podcast. It's called Passive Income Pilots. Check it out.
Awesome.
We had Guy Adami on from CNBC Fast Money as our first guest. We're getting some really high level people on there. So check that out if you'd like to. Yeah, that's probably the best way.
Awesome. Very cool. I want to thank you, Tait, for coming on the show, because this has been a wealth of information for all of our audience members to get your perspective on location, time, financial freedom. It's just great to talk to you in general, man. I'm glad that we could record this conversation for the whole world to hear.
Same. Thanks, Derek.
Yeah,
Appreciate you having me on.
absolutely. For sure, man. And for you, listener, who have listened all the way to this point in the podcast, I just want to thank you as well. And please, wherever you're listening or watching this, please engage with us if you can. Give us a thumbs up, give us a comment, subscribe, do whatever you can in any platform that you're viewing this or listening to it, because it really helps us appease the algorithm gods and get more exposure. That's right. Get more and more exposure to you, people like you, and then also gets us exposure to find incredible people just like Tait here to come on our show and add more value to you and your fellow listeners. So thank you so much. And Tait, once again, really appreciate you coming on, man. It's been a blast.
Thanks, Derek. Thanks,
everyone. Have a good week.